أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله نحمد ونستعين ونستغفر ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we thank and praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gathering us here tonight. We send our peace and blessings upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the blessings in the time that we are spending here tonight. Inshallah, we're going to continue the series of topics related to the theme perfecting moral character. And tonight I'd like to talk on tolerance and pardon. Now we know that you can either put yourself into one of two categories, and this is what you should do, inshallah. See which category you fit in. The first category are those people who are very easily provoked. They are provoked by minor things, and they are provoked and they respond unwisely, normally and in haste. We've seen this happen. We've seen it recently with people like Kramer, when he was doing his stand-up comedy routine and he got provoked and he got heckled by someone in the audience, and he retaliated, revealing his racist rant, racism. And we saw it previously before with Mel Gibson, when he was drunk and he was confronted by the police officer, and he asked the police officer a particular question and also caused a lot of problems. But in some of these cases where it's happened recently, where people retaliated after being provoked, most of the cases involved alcohol. That's why we are in a very good position where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden alcohol. So these people, alcohol lowers their inhibitions and it removes that self-control to disclose to all of us who they really are. And that's what people who drink and they get drunk, that's what they do. They just display to us who they are because they lose their self-control. But unfortunately, Muslims from time to time can also lose this self-control without alcohol. And that's the first group of people. So you need to ask yourself, do you fit into that first category of people who easily provoked and retaliate unwisely? Now the second group, of course the better group, the people who can pass through these provocations and hardships and difficulties while not forgetting to behave with wisdom, remaining in control, being tolerant, being good-mannered. Now what's the reason for this? The first is that it is true that our environment, our nature, our original nature and our temperament plays a big part in whether you are short-tempered, hot-tempered, or whether you are milder, soft-hearted, whether you are serious or hasty, and whether you are righteous or wicked. But there is also a relationship between a person's self-confidence and his behavior with others, in whether he forgives others for their mistakes. And the reality is that the more good-mannered you are, and that's why this series of talks that we have been giving is so important, because manners plays a very important part. And the formula is that the more good-mannered you are, the more tolerant and forbearing you will be. There is a direct relationship between your manners and whether you are tolerant and forbearant. And the person who is well-mannered and tolerant will find excuses, will find extenuating circumstances for other people's mistakes. And he will more readily accept their apologies when they are offered. But the person who is not tolerant, doesn't matter how many times you apologize to him, he will never accept your apologies. And this is also related to another dangerous disease or characteristic or emotion, and that is anger. And I'm sure you have seen people, how anger causes them to become mad. Not only is the person disgraced when he is in that state, disgraced in other people's sight, he is disgraced in his own sight, And what happens is, he becomes angry because maybe somebody has embarrassed him, somebody has humiliated him, and he feels that pain and embarrassment of humiliation. So in order to remove that pain, what he does is, he retaliates. And that's the only way that he can overcome that humiliation that he suffered, is by retaliating. That is the person who doesn't have self-control. He's not able to be tolerant. Now there's also some discussion about the word tolerant when we're talking about interfaith and inter-community relations, that tolerance is not such a good concept, because in fact we should be working towards acceptance. But what I'm basically talking about now is the situation where you are being provoked. And you come across people who are provoking you, situations that are difficult, facing some hardships. That's when you need to tolerate, when you need to be in self-control. So I'm not talking about that interfaith, inter-community dialogue work that is separate to tonight's talk, inshallah. So the question is, can a person who has good manners, can he behave in the way that we just described, by retaliating when he is humiliated, when he is provoked, when he is embarrassed? No, cannot. And in fact, he will not allow himself to behave like that. He will not lower himself. He will not be provoked. He will not lower himself to the level of behavior displayed by the person who is either insulting him, abusing him, or cursing him, because he has manners. And that is the criteria for us. We need to develop good manners. And this is what, and I'm going to go through a few examples, inshallah, to demonstrate this, that it can be done. That you can develop tolerance. Okay? It's not, you should not be satisfied by saying, and proud with the fact that I'm short-tempered. I very easily lose my cool. Please, brother, don't provoke me, because I'm going to lose it. That's something you should not be proud of. In fact, you should be embarrassed about it, and we should all be working to control our anger and control our tempers. Because it is really embarrassing to say that recently we have seen Muslims to be very easily provoked. And it's as if our enemies know that this is a weakness of us, so what they do is, they set these traps of provocation for us. And like fools, we play the part. So they say something, they do something, and yes, what happens is, you will find Muslims burning flags, Muslims burning churches, Muslims burning effigies of George Bush and whoever, as if there was a script written for this whole thing. The Pope says something about Islam being a violent religion, and guess what Muslims do? They confirm that by being violent. So we need to be smarter than that. We need to think about these things. The first example is Nabi Hud alayhi salatu wassalam. When he was confronted by his people, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him to invite his people to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he was confronted with abuses, with curses and accusations. But he was a prophet selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so he had the required tolerance for that task. And he tolerated their abuses. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us of this in the Quran. قال الملأ الذين كفروا من قومه إنا لنراك في سفاهة وإنا لنظنك من الكاذبين قال يا قوم ليس بي سفاهة ولكني رسول من رب العالمين أبلغكم رسالات ربي وأنا لكم ناصح أمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, his people said to him, indeed we see you as a fool. Imagine that. They said to him, you're a fool. Not only are you a fool, you're a liar. But he responded to them and he said, "O my people, there is no foolishness in me. I am a messenger from the Lord of the worlds, and I convey to you the message of my Lord, and I am for you a true advisor." Had he been someone who was easily provoked, think about yourself being called a fool, being called a liar, and how would you respond? Their abuses and their curses did not provoke him, because there is a difference between the two again, between the two groups of people. On the one hand, you have a person, a man whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen as his messenger. He is a representative of khair. He is a representative of goodness, of righteousness, of good manners. But on the other side, you have people who are embedded in their ignorance and their foolishness, and competing with each other in worshipping stones. These were the people of Hud, worshipping stones. And on account of their foolishness, they thought that the stone idols are the masters of their destiny. So how can a great teacher like Nabi Hud alayhi salatu wasalam be frustrated, be disheartened by the misbehavior of such